This is the Transforming Anxiety podcast with Kelly Hanlon McCormick. And today is episode number 203, a podcast interview with my friend Becky Vollmer about her new book, You Are Not Stuck. Welcome to Transforming Anxiety. I'm your host, Kelly McCormick. I'm a mom to 2 boys, a wife, friend, daughter, and sister, and I'm a certified life coach, yoga teacher, and soon-to-be mindfulness meditation teacher. I'm no stranger to anxiety, and I'm here to teach you how to manage your mind and your emotions so that you too can transform anxiety into calm, peace, and whatever you want for your life. I'm so glad you're here. Hey there. I have something so fun for you today, and I wanted, before I bring Becky on, to just introduce her, give her official bio, and let you know a little bit about who she is and what she's about in case you haven't heard of my dear friend, Becky Vollmer. So Becky is a speaker, yoga teacher, and creator of You Are Not Stuck, a movement that empowers people to pursue the lives they most deeply desire. She guides a global community on social media that is several 100,000 strong. She teaches online courses about empowerment and choice and leads sold-out programs that combine movement, breath work, self-exploration, and action planning at yoga and wellness centers across the country. A former newspaper journalist, Becky writes on topics including personal growth, relationships, mental health and wellness, mindfulness, meditation, and spirituality. She also is a leading voice in the sobriety and recovery community. Becky lives in St. Louis, Missouri, with her husband, their 4 children, 3 pets, and more flowers than one person should be allowed. Now, if you've been hanging out with me any length of time, you know I don't really do interviews. And I'm changing that up on the podcast a little bit, which I'm really excited about this year. I'm going to be bringing on some experts to talk about anxiety from all different angles. I'm going to be bringing on yoga teachers, meditation teachers, psychologists, authors. We're going to have some really exciting conversations and experts coming on the show. And there was just nobody better to start with than my dear friend Becky, who has a brand new book out. You're going to hear us talk about this. It's called You Are Not Stuck. The tagline, How Soul-Guided Choices Transform Fear into Freedom. So here is my interview with Becky Vollmer. All right. Becky, this is so fun, even to hang out on Zoom.
I know, we're so overdue.
We are. We haven't seen each other in real life for a hot minute, but this will tide us over for a second.
A little bit.
A little bit. So for those of you, I just introduced Becky and gave her fancy background and all the good things. And if you're watching on video, Becky's book, You Are Not Stuck, which has been your brand for a minute.
Yeah, 2014, You Are Not Stuck was born.
So yeah, 9 years of You Are Not Stuck. It's beautiful. It's beautiful inside and out. Came out January 3rd. You can find this everywhere, all the places. We're going to talk about the book a little bit today. But I thought, because people are always wanting to know, I thought it'd be fun to to start with, how did we meet?
Good luck, of course.
That's right. It was good luck. So I think we just decided it was 2016. You did a New Year's Eve retreat in St. Louis with Laura McCowan. I don't even remember what the retreat was called. Do you remember?
Oh gosh, it was called Push Off From Here.
Oh, well, that's fun.
Yeah.
Because that's her book coming out in March.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Push Off From Here. And the idea was we were going to get together and practice yoga, do some introspection, some reflection. It was on New Year's Eve, so we were going to welcome in
17 together.
Oh, that was fun. We had a little candlelight yoga practice. When midnight came around, we went outside and we burned some shit in a fire.
We did.
Yes, we did.
We walked the labyrinth,
Uh-huh.
right? And we burned some shit in the fire, which felt very cathartic.
Oh, and that was such an amazing group of women too, just to have, I don't even remember how many people we had, about 20, 25, 30 women came together and stayed overnight. And there was a lot of new sobriety in the room. I remember that. And it was just really lovely to be in kind of sacred circle, to be in community with women who were there for more than just the yoga, who were, I've been teaching yoga since, I don't know, 2005. But at that point, I had only begun weaving in messages of empowerment and choice and the whole idea of, getting unstuck for the last few years prior to that. So that was sort of the beginning of my work of holding space for women who, yes, may have been, who might have walked in the door through the yoga entrance, but who were really there for some much bigger, deeper self-reflection, self-excavation, beginning to look a little more squarely at the fear that was kind of standing between where they were and where they wanted to go. And then hopefully, just lighting that match underneath people's rear ends to get inspired to get up and take some action and begin to move, not just think about the life they wanted, but to take some real concrete steps to move, to actually walk closer to it. So yeah, that was that. I have very, very fond memories of that retreat, and not just because you were there, but because it really, I don't know, I feel like in many ways I'm still in touch with many of the women who were there. And I feel like that night, that experience just touched off something in so many people that, still lives within them today.
I agree. It was as an attendee and as somebody who, the message about the retreat and the workshop and what we would be up to was very clearly yoga and sobriety. And this, I was not yet sober. My coach, Meadow, she had suggested to me at that point, probably 4 or 5 years before that maybe I should quit drinking, which sounded totally random to me. It's like, that clearly has nothing to do with anything I'm struggling with. No.
Yeah, why would I do that?
Right. It just sounded like she was like, maybe you should just wear pink slippers from now on. I was like, that has nothing to do with anything, Meadow, obviously. And that night, and I don't know if you know this, I drank the night before and I drank the night after the retreat, but there were 36, 48 hours in there that I didn't. And I didn't really think about it in the sense that I was in a very sacred container. I was in a held space where that was just so outside of what we were up to.
Yeah.
That it didn't enter into the equation for that time, which was brand new for me. Mm-hmm. And sounds a little simple when we just sit here and talk about, but I can't tell you how profound it felt to me. And it took me a full year. So that was December 31st, 2016. The day I quit drinking, which was 5 years ago now, was December 31st, 2017. And I say that first of all, because yay.
Well, double yay with some exclamation points on it.
Right. But also because anybody who's on the path of, and this could be about drinking, this could be about food, this could be about money, this could be about relationships, work.
You name it.
you name it, right? Getting outside to breathe, whatever it is. Just because it doesn't look the way that we think, like quitting drinking means you don't drink. I was so far down the path by that point, and I was still drinking, but I was doing it. It's an and both all kind of situation. So I guess technically, yes, it took me another year, but I turned a huge corner that night at that retreat. Yeah, I don't know how much longer it would have taken me without that retreat. So that was a fun night.
It was a very fun night. And I think you hit on something really important when you talk about just how gradual change can be, and how, I think sometimes we underestimate the power of planting a seed.
Yeah.
We tend to think that big bold choices get made, poof, in one instant, or in one lightning strike of inspiration or courage. But really what happens is, we drop seeds. They get planted, they get watered, they get nurtured, and eventually something takes root within us, whether it's a new understanding, or whether it's a newfound clarity, or a courage that maybe is feels brand new to us. That takes root, and all of a sudden it becomes evident. But what we fail to remember is that we've been cultivating that for a long time in lots of different ways, just nurturing a little bit here, a little bit there, until the time was right to emerge sort of, powerful and with conviction. Conviction it's not a bolt from the blue. It's the culmination of lots of bits of reinforcement until we become ready to hear the thing we need to hear. And then it's magic.
Yeah. And then it's magic, right? It's a million tiny decisions. It's not a one shot.
Right.
So whether it's emotions, whether it's something kind of tangible that you can get your hands on, like food or alcohol or shopping, whether it's just like this internal felt sense, this inner emotional landscape of showing up as the person you actually want to be in the world. It's like we're all doing it. Right?
It's
the
just
roots are
slow.
riotous under there. It's just slow.
It's just slow. The realization that we need to change comes on slowly, but then so does change itself. The saying that, big ships turn slowly. If you think about how long over however many years we have wound ourselves up into a particular frame of mind or state of being, well, it takes an awful long time to unwind that with grace. It's never like flipping on a light switch or flipping it off. So one of the things that I try to remember it myself, but I really try to remember it and share it with anybody who's at maybe an early stage of change, is just to have the grace and the patience to allow the big ship to turn slowly.
Yes. And you talk a lot in your book about, there's a lot of yoga philosophy and a lot of tenets and guidelines that we talk about in the yoga world. And one that I return to a lot is that tapas, right? Like keep the heat on. It's not going to happen instantaneously. Nothing worthwhile is a one shot. But if we can keep the heat on, and it's not about perfection either.
Oh no.
What right? The path is not linear.
No, perfection doesn't exist.
No.
I mean, to me, it's about having the vision, the idea of where you want to walk, even if it's a general idea, but then having the dedication to that vision and taking itty bitty, teeny tiny steps in the general direction of where you want to go is progress. And it's all about progress, right? And sometimes on the path, you may step to the side. You may you may decide to go a different direction. You may do a total 180. It's all okay as long as those changes in direction, those course corrections are based on what you truly, truly desire, and not kind of an acquiescence to fear, or an acquiescence to the voices of, I like to call other people, capital O, capital P, right? Like, that's kind of a dirty word to me, other people.
Or the they, right? What are they gonna say? What are they
Them,
gonna think?
right?
Right? Okay, I'm gonna read you to you because this is fun.
Oh, okay.
This is like right off in the book. And this is close to what we're talking about too. People see clearly the need to shift something big in their lives. In fact, many of them know, this is the one that got me. Many of them know precisely what needs to change. But one powerful force keeps them from initiating it: a perceived lack of license, an absence of agency, a poverty of permission. Right? So I think this goes into it too of, I don't know that many of us are all that shocked at what we want or what needs to change. We know. It's a little gobsmacking to me how many layers of other people, cultural conditioning, parents, caregivers, teachers, mentors, beliefs, structures, society, groups, organizations, communities, whatever. It's like how many layers of that we have to dig down into. It's no wonder people give up on this work. I get it.
Oh yeah, before we even start, right? And so what you were talking about there, I pulled out a phrase to sort of encapsulate what you just said, and I call that the empowerment gap. And that came from the idea that people know what needs to change, and yet they don't feel like they've got the permission to make the change. That's not just a theory. I've got some numbers associated with that. Several years ago, I put some research in the field and asked people those very questions. And the way the numbers came back, I'll just ballpark it here. Roughly 6 out of 10 people knew that they needed to change something. And then roughly 4 out of 10 people said they were ready to change. But then you go and you ask, okay, how many of you feel empowered to change? How many of you feel as though you have that agency, that permission? That number went down to 14%. And so it's within that gap where we stop before we even begin. Now, I will say, if there's any silver lining to what we've experienced with COVID over the last 3 years, I did put that survey back out in the field in 2021. So about a year and a half into COVID, and asking that same question, I was so happy to see that the number of people who said they felt empowered, it really skyrocketed. I mean, it was 2-3 times the initial number, which shows me, as people are faced with, as we've been faced with the idea that time is finite, and as we've seen that we do have to make some choices in life, not always popular ones, but sometimes necessary ones, that we as a society, we as a collective, especially women, are starting to feel a greater sense of empowerment to actually make those choices.
Yes.
That's heartening to me.
I could not agree with you more. And, around here, we talk a lot about anxiety, this being Transforming Anxiety podcast. And what I think is interesting too, this empowerment gap, there's this chasm, right, between the knowing and the doing, right? We know, it's like you said, people know that either something has to change. And it's fascinating to me how many people know exactly what needs to change. They know exactly what they want, right? But the chasm between the knowing of that and then all of the like, well, someday, wouldn't it be nice if, I wish I could, all of that.
When the kids are grown up, if I win the lottery,
all of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
That goes between the knowing and the doing. And I have a couple hunches about anxiety. One of them is that this is one of the ripest breeding grounds for it, is when we know something that we're not doing and trying to live with that. Right? This is trying to connect some dots that don't connect.
Amen. Amen. 1,000,000%. You know, there's something that I spend some time with in the book. And in fact, I actually commissioned a great artist to make an illustration about it, because I wanted to package this in such a way that people could just understand at a glance. This concept between all of the tension that exists between what we want to do versus what we think we should do. That space in there that you're describing, that space of inaction, right? Where we recognize that the life we want is completely unaligned with the life we're living. That is so anxiety producing, because it creates so much self-judgment, self-loathing. It's like, I want to get here, but I don't know how. I don't think I deserve it. I don't think I'm capable of it. Oh, and by the way, here are the voices of other people, capital O, capital P, chirping in my ear with all of their expectations. And my God, the other people are so free with their opinions. And all it does is create this awful mess of tension and angst and anxiety. And for some of us, it is absolutely paralyzing. In my experience, and I think you can speak to this too, Kelly, to try to unravel that place of anxiety. I mean, it's like imagine like the little thought bubble over your head that's just filled with, like, you know, all of the exclamation points and the money signs and the @ sign and the dollar sign. It's like your brain is just screaming and cursing. The antidote to that is to get really clear in what you value and why you value it, in order to create that picture of what it is you want to walk toward, baby step by baby step. So I spend an awful lot of time in the book, and I mean, every day, talking about values. And I know people are like, oh God, not values, not again. I don't want to talk about values anymore. It's really the crux of what guides us, if we're being guided by the right thing.
Okay, so let me read you to you again. It's like you and I, we didn't really prep for this. I'm like, I know Becky. I love Becky. This will be fine. So this
I
is
love
great.
that you're reading me to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Of course I am. This was one of the other things I had flagged though to talk about today, which is under the heading, what are your values? If there's one thing I wish someone had told me when I was younger, it's that lines are not meant to be towed. They are meant to be moved and redrawn and colored in and erased until they suit you. And you can do that as many times as you like. They're your lines, after all.
Yeah.
Right? So when you talk about values, and I know what you mean, people's eyes are like, bah, like goals, values, like no more. This is it though. They're your lines. Right? So
and we forget that, because in a lot of situations, it's almost like they never belonged to us to begin with. our values. It's, we're born into a family of origin, and, right away we're born into somebody else's value system, right? We didn't come out of the chute with our own sense of values. We're essentially handed a set of someone else's values and told this is how we live. And then, we grow up, we head to school. Maybe it's a public school. Maybe it's a fancy, prestigious private academic institution. Maybe it's a religious school. You name it, we walk in the door, we're handed another set of values, whether they're spoken or unspoken, written or unwritten. They exist, and we are expected to comply. And then we get a little older. Let's say we enter the workforce. Anywhere from my first job was at Pizza Hut to my last job was, a high-ranking person in corporate America. Regardless of where we're working, we're handed another set of values. Again, written or unwritten, spoken or unspoken, and we're told this is how we do it here. And then let's say we meet somebody, we partner up, decide, hey, let's do this life thing together. Well, that person has a set of values that stretches all the way back to their family of origin and everything that they've accumulated over time. And so maybe you adopt those, you blend those, you do something with those, but you're not immune to them. And then all of a sudden, maybe you're 30, 40, 50, 60 years old, and all of a sudden you're asking the question, but wait, what do I stand for? What is my North Star? And what is my North Star now? Not what I was handed when I was 15 or 25. But what do I believe in now? What do I want my life to be like now? And I think we just don't stop and ask ourselves those questions nearly as often as we should.
And you hit on something else important here, which is the fluidity of our North Stars. It's going to change. If let's assume for a second that we're some magical unicorn that had the wherewithal to inquire and get curious about what our North Star was early in life. Many, many, many of us don't, because we're still following the path that was laid out and just executing the steps. We're just jumping through the hoops that society and school and parents set forth. But let's assume for a moment that it's somewhere along that way we had checked in with our North Star. Does this fit? Do I like this major? Do I like this work? Do I like these people? Does any of this working for me? What suits? I mean, your North Star in your 20s and your 30s and your 40s, this is going to adjust for different versions of you, for different situations in your life. You're going to learn and grow. And there's going to be part of your North Star that falls away and another part that comes on board. And so there's a fluidity with all of it.
It's evolution. It is just evolution. And if our values are not evolving along with our life experience, we're in trouble.
Right. We're losing the plot. Right. If that's not a constant evolution, it should become more and more and more, not less and less. Which I think is exciting. I don't want people to hear this as, I think sometimes people mistake this as something else to do because we're such a to-do list, task, achievement oriented culture. Truly, what's the alternative to this?
I like to think of it as it's permission to change as we grow. It's an opportunity to be in alignment with ourselves as we grow, but we don't know, alignment with what, unless we're checking in and asking those questions. And then I think the other thing that it's incumbent on us to do, and this is something that can go on somebody's to-do list because it's an exercise worth doing, but to get real honest about how we're prioritizing all of our resources that go into living out our values, right? How do we prioritize our time? How do we prioritize our attention or our intention? How do we prioritize spending our money, right? And if I encourage people to do this, there's actually an exercise in the book that encourages people to just sort of stop for a minute and sketch out how you would prioritize those resources if you were really living in alignment with your values of today, right? Not yesterday, not somebody else's values, but if you are in alignment with your values of today, how would you prioritize your time, money, attention, etc.? And then to sort of put that up against how you actually are living out your priorities. Right?
Yes.
What is getting your time? So here's a great example. I might, let's say, you and I have sobriety in common. I'm coming up next month. I'm celebrating 9 years sober.
Yay.
Yay. Let's say that I really value my sobriety.
Mhm.
But if you look at the way I'm actually spending my time, if I'm not making any time to do the things I know that keep me sober, then I'm not actually prioritizing it. I'm just paying lip service to it. So the way that I know I'm prioritizing my value, the way I know I'm living out my value of being sober is that I'm making time to have conversations with other sober people. I'm taking time to read about sobriety. I'm taking time to reflect on the things that either keep me sober or threaten to disrupt my emotional sobriety, right?
Yeah.
So if I'm not practicing that, if I'm not prioritizing that, I'm just talking about it. And talking about values and living our values are two very different things.
Well, and this, I was going to say, this is another one of these breeding grounds for anxiety, is to live in a way where we're not connected to, like what you're saying, what we truly value. It's one thing to not drink. We could call that sober. It's
Yeah, call that
another
dry.
thing. Right. No, exactly. Right. That's dry. It's another thing to live connected to a life that supports recovery, restoration, recuperation, that supports you being the highest version of yourself. So and that disconnect, again, there's a chasm, right? Between I'm executing steps. I've talked with people, here's another example. I've talked with people who have a really beautiful morning routine on paper. If you were a fly on the wall, it would look good because they get up and maybe they meditate, maybe they journal, maybe they read a little bit of something, maybe they have a cup of tea, maybe they just kind of sit quietly, maybe they go
Doesn't
outside.
that sound lovely? I've never been able to incorporate. I'd love to be able to say I have something that looks like that. I do not.
Well, here's the thing though. If you're doing all of those things and all you're thinking about is all the shit you need to get done that day, or you're looking at all the dust bunnies along the floorboards, or you're feeling that, what we were talking about earlier, that total disconnect between who you want to be and how your day is going to go.
Yeah.
I don't know that you're really living a morning routine so much as checking boxes. And again, there's this sense of tension. There's this sense of misalignment with ourselves because it's like nobody's home.
Yeah. I think what you hit on, you said the word several times, and it's worth it's worth unpacking a little bit, is the idea of should.
Yeah.
I talk a lot about this indigestion of shoulds.
I loved that title for that chapter. Oh my gosh.
you know, you have this feeling within you like, "Yeah, I should do this or I should do that," or other people, capital O, capital P, are telling you what you should do. And it's like you get that sensation right in the middle of your chest, and you just feel it creeping up towards your throat. And you realize, like, if I've got to swallow one more fucking should, I'm going to lose it.
Right.
And you just get that sense of indigestion. And so, well, so what do we do to treat the indigestion? We've got to reduce the should, and we've got to live instead in the want and the do.
Yes.
So how do, you know, to your question, how do we deal with that tension between wanting something and taking action? We have to take concrete steps to eliminate the rumination, the self-contempt, the self-loathing that comes as a result of not taking action. So part of it is commitment, but part of it is also execution.
And I just want to highlight the execution point for a second. We can talk all day long and it looks really cute on a pillow or on a whatever. We can do hard things. We say this stuff all day, right? The execution is not for the faint of heart.
Oh no.
It is so hard. Okay, you and I both left the corporate world. Talk about some shoulds. You and I both left pretty shiny, fatty, dependable, highly marketable positions in the corporate world when we had children, when we had homes, when we had all the things to pay for. We'd done the college thing. That was the next step. And we had done it. And we have both taken the the execution part of taking the step to go out on our own and to create a job, a livelihood, the way that we spend our time, the way that we use our energy, our effort, the way we interact with other people.
Yep.
That's not nothing to execute, to take that action.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just want to underscore that in case we get really rosy thinking it's fun to talk about. Right?
I'm thinking about the shoulds, and I'm thinking about the damage we do to ourselves when we are living a life based on other people's expectations, right? And so we internalize so many of those, but we are told there's a progression for a young woman to take in this modern society, right? We are told what that quote should look like. You should go get a great education, and then you should go get a great job that's going to pay you a great amount of money so that you can be independent if you so choose. But really, you should partner up with somebody who's also going to take care of you and that you can take care of them. And then you should add some children into the mix. And then you should be able to balance all of this because you're a smart, highly educated person in a two-person relationship where ostensibly you're being supported as you are supporting. And you should put all of that good fortune to good use and go out and make money for other people so that you can make a lot of money for yourself. And at the same time, you all of your friendships, and you should your mind in really good health, in good shape. And you should be involved actively in your community and in philanthropy, in your kids' schools, and you should smile while you're doing it all. Seize the day, right? Right. Do you remember the old piece from Glennon where she talked about Kairos time?
Yes.
And when having the kid having the meltdown in the grocery store, and an older woman looking at her lovingly and saying, oh, you really should enjoy every minute of this. And she's like, do you really think that somebody's saying this to Craig? Carpe diem, Craig, or enjoy all of this, Craig. Nobody shoulds on men the way they should on women.
Yes.
And we get caught up in doing it to ourselves because we take that voice that we hear from other people, and that voice becomes part of the way we talk to ourselves. So then all of a sudden, all of the shoulds that we've heard from the outside for our whole lives get internalized as shoulds that we are telling ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And it becomes almost inescapable until we learn how to talk back to that voice in our head and say, enough.
Right. It's like we think we're thinking our thoughts. And you're right, recognizing those are not our thoughts. Those are the other people's thoughts. That's the culture, the society, the groups, the churches, the organizations, the parents, the caregivers, the teachers, all of the adults.
Yeah.
And enough to the thoughts that are not our thoughts, and being willing to look at and dig in and understand what are my thoughts? What are my wants? Who am I?
That's right. That's right.
That's right.
I'm thinking of something that I put in the book, and I'm actually sort of scrolling as we're talking.
Okay.
Because this will give you an example of something that I've experienced in my life and how I explained it. Hold on.
Now Becky's going to read Becky to us.
Well, I am if I'm gonna oh goodness. Why does that? Aha. So about how many years ago would this have been? I don't know, 8 years or so ago. When I was still married to my ex-husband, like our marriage just kind of imploded. And it took me a very long time to recognize, well, not to recognize, but to come to the decision. I wrestled for quite a long time. Should I stay? Should I go? And can I read you 2 paragraphs that will just put this into a better context than I could riff off the top of my head?
I think I know what you're going to say. Yes, please.
Because we live in a society that values conformity over free and individual thinking, we find ourselves agonizing over and often acquiescing to other people's opinions. We get stuck in exhausting dialogue with their voice in our head, the one shouting, you should do this, you shouldn't do this, and we ignore our own inner knowing. That's where I was stuck in the decision-making process with Dave, that's my ex-husband, caught between want and should. My guilt said I shouldn't deprive my girls of their traditional nuclear family. My mother said I should at least wait until they went off to college. My therapist said I should spend more time working toward reconciliation before taking action. My shame said I should have been a better person, the kind someone couldn't just stop loving. But the deepest part of me, the ever-wise part, knew the right and loving thing for everyone involved was to move on peaceably and leave.
Yes.
And I can remember that stage of contemplation like it was yesterday, just that being stuck in the loop of hearing everybody else's voices
Yeah.
and just being inundated with ideas around what everybody else thought I should do. But when I really stopped to listen only to the part of me that knew, like when I stopped listening to the other voices and what they said I should do, and when I could have enough compassion for my shame
Yeah.
to let the voice of my shame be heard, but then sit on the sidelines.
Mm-hmm.
And I could listen then to the voice of my deeper knowing that said, yeah, time to go. That's when I was able to make a choice in peace.
Yeah.
And so if you're thinking about how do I begin to move a little farther away from the anxiety in my mind and move closer toward a sensation of inner peace? To me, it comes with the discernment of which voice we should be listening to.
Mm-hmm.
Ignore the ones that don't deserve it.
Mm-hmm.
Have compassion for the voices within us that are suffering, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the same thing, Kelly, that, for the yoga practitioners listening, that's the same thing the Yoga Sutras say about, the 4 keys of how you can treat any person, how you treat the 4 different types of people. You're supposed to have delight in the virtuous and compassion for the suffering. And oh God, I'm gonna miss one. The third one, and then the last one is you have disregard for the wicked.
Mm.
And so when we could recognize which thoughts in our heads are not virtuous or glad or suffering, but really kind of wicked, like their only job is disruption and despair, when we can treat those voices with more indifference
Yeah.
and instead be guided by the voice within, that's where we find more peace and wholeness, but mostly peace.
Wholeness. And there's an interesting thing to realize here too with peace. It's kind of like relief in the sense that peace, I think when we talk about peace, we think it sounds real rosy and sweet and just like a nice place to hang out. Peace is usually on the other side of something hard. It's an acceptance of and a discernment, like you said, there's a sifting and okay, the dust has now settled. I can see it. There's a peace there. But we don't go straight to peace without the discerning, without the sifting, without the sorting.
I think you're absolutely right. And I think then once we get a taste of peace, then peace begins to walk along with us, even in the times of struggle.
Yeah.
Even before the next time around, when things have kind of imploded and the dust hasn't settled yet, we can still find peace in that moment when, this is how I define it for me, when I'm beholden to the right voice.
Yeah.
When I'm in alignment with the right voice, not the voice of other people, not the voice of my fear, not the voice, the internalized voice of shoulds, But when I know that I am acting in accordance with my deeper self, myself with a capital S, the one I call my stardust self, or, my divine self. When I'm acting in accordance with my divine self, I am walking in peace. And there may still be a shitstorm swirling around us. But when we walk in peace, when we walk in clarity, when we walk in alignment, we suffer so much less.
Yes. Yes. And even the painful, the difficult, the challenging, when there's that voice of peace alongside us, it's shocking the pain, the difficulty, the challenging we can walk through because we don't suffer.
It's fortitude. We think of peace, like you said, we think of it as, a rosiness, a nice place to visit. To me, peace is strength.
Right.
Peace is fortitude.
Right. And it's, I think this kind of work sometimes gets kind of cast aside as like a luxury or nice to have, or sounds, fun or kind of indulgent. And no, it's a must. Yes.
It's essential in that it is our essence.
Yes. It's a must have. And for anybody who thinks, I always love when somebody is like, oh, that's cute. Like, you do yoga and meditate and practice mindfulness, and that sounds sweet. I'm like, you have no idea.
That's right. You have no idea. I mean, I'm sure you've seen that meme where it's like, what people think inner growth looks like. And it's like, oh, it's like what it really looks like. And this woman is just sobbing. Like she looks like she's in the midst of a mental breakdown. Yeah, that's it. But it's the bravest fucking work that we can do.
Yes, yes, it is the bravest fucking work we can do. And essential. Everything falls out from here. It's not the other way around. You can't get your ducks in a row and then come do this. It'll never work.
That saying, you go, wait, shit. Now I'm going to butcher it. It's like,
this is how I tell jokes.
Oh God, I've already ruined it. But the idea that you don't get your shit together and go to yoga. You go to yoga to get your shit together. That's the one. Could you edit out the 10 seconds where I was tripping over that?
Nope. We're going to keep all that. But okay, to kind of bring this around to where we started, this will be a nice way to kind of bookend and bring this to our own sense of wholeness here for this conversation. It was similar to the retreat that we did where we met, where it was like, come to bring in New Year's with this amazing group of women, and we're going to practice some yoga, and it's going to be lovely. Stay for the introspection, the reflection, the kindness, the compassion, the curiosity, the seeds we're going to plant.
That's right.
The support, the belief. There was a sense too of like this belief, I hold this vision of you. I know exactly where you're headed. You knew that. I got the sense you and I had this like one-off conversation. I don't know if you remember, you were like, you have great hair. That was Becky's pickup line for me. You have great hair.
Did I lie?
No. I love you.
Which was code for, how you doing? I see that you're about to undergo some real radical change, and come take my hand. I want to sit with you while you do it.
There we go.
Because you're fucking amazing and you're worth it. So to anybody who's feeling like, yes, I feel stuck. Yes, I wish I could change. But the sad truth deep within is that I don't feel that I'm worthy of it. I don't feel that I'm deserving of it. I don't feel that I should rock the boat. I just sort of feel like I should just shut up and be grateful for what I have.
Mm.
Yes, I see you. And you are worthy of the life you want. You are worthy of the most beautiful life you could dream for yourself. You deserve every happiness you want. You deserve fulfillment. You deserve joy. You deserve peace. You deserve wholeness. You deserve freedom. That's what this is all about, is finding what freedom looks like for each one of us, and then having the bones to chase it.
Yes. Becky. Yes. Thank you so much for being here today with us.
Thank
Your
you so
whole
much
book,
for
if
asking
you
me.
loved this conversation and love Becky, the whole book, okay, so it's called, I don't know if I said the whole title, You Are Not Stuck, subtitle, How Soul-Guided Choices Transform Fear into Freedom. The whole book reads like this beautiful conversation with Becky. I'm so lucky to know you, so I could just hear you talking in my ear the whole time I was reading it. It's absolutely beautiful. It's super accessible and kind of like hard as shit, just what we talked about. There's nothing fluffy or fun about it.
Oh,
And
there's a little bit fun about it.
well, there was
Come
a
on.
sentence that you used God, tits, and oatmeal in one sentence, which so it's super fun. And if you're going to integrate it, if you're going to live this and execute this, not all fun, but essential.
And worth it.
Worth it because you're worth it.
Yeah. That's right. I loved talking with you. Thank you so much.
I love anytime I get to talk with you. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for spending time with the Transforming Anxiety community. I know they will love this conversation. And Becky does check out her website, youarenotstuck.com. Yeah.
Wow.
You have actually, tell them about the circle, tell them about your offerings.
Oh my goodness, my offerings. So
Get the book.
I teach. I've been teaching the principles that are discussed in the book for years now, and mostly the way I do it is through a yoga based, movement based experience. Sometimes it's like an afternoon workshop, but for the last several years it's been more like a multi-day retreat experience. So in 2023, I'll be back again at Kripalu for anybody in the Northeast. I'll be at Omega Institute in July. That's in New York. And I'll be back at the Art of Living Institute. That's in North Carolina. And my God, so beautiful. I was there last year, right as the fall leaves were at their peak color. And I'll be back again that same weekend in 2023. So highly recommend. So in-person kind of retreats and workshops is one way to keep this, to dive into this. A much easier way to be part of the conversation is through just a weekly Zoom call that I host. It's called The Circle. Every Wednesday at noon Eastern, 11 Central, 9 a.m. on the West Coast. We gather for an hour. There are people from all over, and it's amazing. We just gather and we talk about a lot of these principles around empowerment and choice and personal development and sobriety and emotional sobriety. Yesterday's conversation was all about what do we do when we want to stop confusing self-abandonment with acceptance? And
Mm.
what does, kind of wholehearted empowerment look like, so just like those really rich conversations, and I talk a little and people share. So that's every week. And then I also, for anybody who likes more of like a classroom, I shouldn't even call it a classroom type experience, but I've got an online course that is me sitting right here at my desk. It's a 6-session online course that gives you lots of reflection prompts and time to excavate a little bit. And it's an ongoing conversation that you can take at your own pace, and that's called Resolution, also on the website.
Yeah.
And on social media, I drop in Instagram and Facebook just with, I don't know, thoughts, reflections, questions, homework, observation, bad jokes,
Yeah.
update on my kids, you name it. It's there on social.
Yeah. You want to up level your Instagram algorithm, follow Becky at You Are Not Stuck. Because you can train your algorithm to show you amazing things. And Becky is an amazing place to hang out on social media. Not everywhere is, and you can introduce that on purpose.
Oh my God. My social media algorithm, my Instagram feed is nothing but like border collies, herding sheep, and funny kittens, and like self-help wisdom. So yeah, you can definitely train it.
You can train it, and Becky is a good way to interact with Instagram. I am here to tell you, I can attest to that. Yeah. Becky, thank you so much for being here. I just love you. And I can't wait to see you again soon. We were just saying we're overdue for a trip, so we'll figure that out. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for having me.
Yes.
Do you have someone to help you with your stress, anxiety, worry, and overwhelm? If not, I would love to be your coach. The Fierce Calm Project is my virtual coaching program where we get to go in on topics like this one, and I can help you apply these lessons to your life so that you're creating your own transformation. We do live coaching calls, guided meditations, on-demand yoga classes. We hold book club where we read books your neighborhood book club won't, and there's lots of bonus content that I've created just for you. When you're ready to take what you're learning on the podcast to a whole other level, then come on over and check out the Fierce Calm Project at kellyhanlonmccormick.com/Fierce Calm Project.